to thank to you for showing up. Not to sound like an airline agency, but you have many choices of what you can do in your afternoon. But also with acknowledgements, to take a moment to reflect on the land that we are occupied on. We're physically dispersed, and virtually constructed. And as we do that, to really acknowledge the various traditional and sacred lands on which we conduct our business today, and acknowledging all the elders, ancestors, and caretakers who have made this possible. And you can learn more about the lands that you occupy by going to native-land.ca, and we will send you the link for that as well. So today's session, after our welcome, we're going to talk a little about why we're here, introduce briefly a few key concepts, many of which you'll likely grapple with over time, but that will be important to our conversation today. We'll have an opportunity to talk about and reflect on why you are a part of DAN. Those of you who are new, what drew you to this network? We'll talk a little bit about why collaboration matters and is important, and how we can collaborate and act collectively going forward. And finally, if there's time, we want to begin the discussion of what we will need to do to make all of this work. So in the email that you received, we asked you, I guess I asked you, to think about a one sentence that describes what your organization does, how it does it, and for whom. And I see someone earlier put that in the chat. This could be your mission statement. It could be a less formal statement of what you do, but it's important in terms of everyone knowing who's in the room today, and also as an opportunity to reflect on your own why, your own organization's purpose in entering into this conversation today. So take a couple of minutes. I see Diane started us off, to just put your mission, your what you do, how and for whom in the chat. If you don't have access to the chat and want to raise your hand, I think Carolyn will be able to see that, and we can take your comments that way.
Absolutely, Sharon. We have both myself watching the Q&A, and we have Sarah May watching the chat box. And if you would like to have audible comments, we can give anyone speaking privilege at any point. Just cue us, Sharon. We'll take care of it.
Sure, however people want to do that, but please do give us a sense. Thank you, Jesse. So we have Peg Taylor Center for Adult Day Healthcare.
Sharon, would you like these chat comments read?
We can have whatever the group typically does. If you'd like to read them word for word,
what we'll do if individuals are willing, so we have that voice variety, I'm happy to give speaking privilege. I know Peg Taylor Center is on. I believe that's Diane Puckett, who is the executive director. So Diane, if you would like to just briefly share your mission and vision with the group, I will give you those speaking privileges. Give me just one moment. Diane, you should see an allowance to speak now if you decide to come off mute. I do see that you're off mute, Diane, but we cannot hear you yet.
No, I'm getting into the chat box so that I can
Awesome. You are
read my
perfect now.
statement that
We
I
hear
put
you
in
loud.
there. Hi, I'm Diane Puckett, and I was the founding executive director of the Peg Taylor Center, but my role has shifted. And Corey Miller, who is the current executive director, was having a little trouble getting on the meeting. So she's still working on trying to get on. But I'm happy to share what we do. I put this in the form of a mission statement and said that our mission is to promote health, independence, dignity, and quality of life for older and younger adults facing serious health challenges by providing active health care and social support to uplift them and their families in a spirit of friendship and community. And I'll just note that during the pandemic, this has meant really branching out in all kinds of ways. So that in addition to our center here in Chico, we've been providing a lot of support for people when they were needing to be at home, and a whole range of other things that we've been doing for people.
And thank you so much. And I think that Carolyn, what we might do is if you wanted to read out the mission statements or give people an opportunity to read so that we can get to the interactive work, that might be
Absolutely.
helpful.
Absolutely. We'll move next then to Jesse Powell. Jesse, I'm going to unmute you, and that will allow you to just read what you have in that chat box area to our group. You should be good, Jesse, now.
Okay, can you hear me okay?
We sure can. Go for it.
I am the community outreach advocate for the Glenn County Victim Witness Program, and we are trying to fill gaps in services, and that includes with vulnerable adults, including elders, because that's one population that doesn't seem to be getting quite enough services in this area.
Thank you so much, Jesse. We'll move next to
No problem.
Elaine Benwell.
Hello, I'm the Elder Services Program Manager for the Corning Healthcare District. Corning, the Healthcare District is what, there used to be a hospital in Corning and it's no longer there. So our focus now is bringing in health-related services to our service area, which is South Tehama County. My particular focus is elders and seniors, older adults. That's not necessarily the focus of the Corning Healthcare District, but that's where my heart is, and that's where my work is.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Elaine. We're glad to have you today. Sarah, I know that you briefly introduced yourself earlier, but some have joined since then. So if you would like to please read what you have in the chat for the group, that would be great.
Sure. Can you hear me okay?
We can.
All right. So I'm Sarah May, and I work for a federally funded state agency called the State Council on Developmental Disabilities. And we ensure that people with intellectual and developmental disabilities and their families in California receive services and supports that they need to fully participate in their community, to be fully included in the community. And we do that through these big words. We call it through advocacy, capacity building, and system changes. We work to increase people's knowledge of services, but ultimately our job is to improve the service system to make it better and better for the people who use the services and to be fully included in their communities and to receive those supports to make that happen.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Sarah. Jen, I will read your comments. I do not see the ability for you to come in with a microphone. So for our community, we have Jen Wolf joining us. She is with the Iowa Disability League, whose mission is to become an accessible, inclusive, virtual communication hub and action organization for the disability community and partners to empower each others to impact systems change. So thank you for joining us, Jen. Jesse Powell, I see Jesse Powell next in the queue. And I am happy to give you ability to speak, Jesse. If you would like to do so, you now have the floor.
I actually spoke in the beginning. Sorry about that.
No problem. Thank you. We'll move to the next guest. Thanks, Jesse. I see Tatiana Faso. Thank you so much for joining us, Tatiana, and I am unmuting you now.
Okay, can you hear me?
We sure can. Thank you.
All right. Hello, everybody. I'm Tatiana Fassieu, and I've been affiliated with Passages HICAP, the Medicare counseling program, for 25 years. And I do everything dealing with Medicare, prescription drugs, advocacy, but I have been moving gradually, if not more fervently, onto statewide issues dealing with Medicare, the Master Plan on Aging, and CalAIM. So I've been in and out of Dan for several years since Dan was put into existence. And so having heard other SCAN Foundation been on some of their own calls, I felt that I still need to be connected to the foundation's grant locally where I live.
Thank you so much, Tatiana. And Diane, just letting you know that Corey was able to join us now. Corey, I know you're still on Diane's link. So if there's anything that you want to comment, I will go back to Diane's link and see if that allows Corey to talk, Diane. I'm not sure if it will. So Corey, can you try talking, please?
Yes, can you hear me?
We sure can.
Okay, I didn't hear what Diane said about our mission and our purpose, but I'm sure it was all encompassing. So I'm good. Thank you.
Absolutely welcome. Thank you for joining us. Let's see. I now saw a Mary Newman. So Mary, I am moving to unmute you, and you are welcome to read your comments from the chat for our group, please. You should be clear, Mary. Can we check your sound, please? Okay, so I'm not seeing Mary come in through sound. Mary, with your permission, I will read your chat comment. Mary is with Passages, the area agency on aging, and she provides resources and services to older adults and caregivers to 5 counties in Northern California. And as part of the emerging ADRC, she is actually a partner to the DAC-DAN network. Thank you so much for joining us today, Mary. And I want to make sure I haven't missed anyone, Sharon. I think we're down to
The
just
Brain
about
Injury
everyone.
Coalition.
Brain Injury Coalition, thank you. I'm trying to see who's in from the coalition, and it's kind of hard scrolling through this chat, so bear with me. There we go. I see Brain Injury Coalition, but I'm not seeing them on as a link. I do know that that is headed by Landa Bell Carson, and they are located physically in the Chico area, Butte County. Landa, thank you for joining us. The Brain Injury Coalition is an advocacy and educational organization, and they are dedicated to promoting brain injury awareness, creating opportunities for individuals with brain injury, their caregivers, and families. I believe we have rounded out everyone who had a comment in the box. If we've missed you, please just give us a heads up in the chat, and we'll give you attention before we conclude our presentation, and we'll pass the floor back to you now, Sharon.
All right, thank you. So thank you for doing that work prior to coming today and bringing that awareness of who you are and what you do into this work. And many of you were sharing, some of you have been involved for a long time, and we know there are new people coming to the coalition. And as a reminder of the commitments that this network has made, among them advocating for changes to improve the lives of older adults and people of all ages with disabilities in the area, and ensuring equitable access to quality health care, affordable housing, and social emotional support. Part of the how that happens is what we're doing today, strengthening and formalizing DAN coalition membership commitments, and really around the collaborative approaches that we're beginning to talk about. And also part of the how are the value commitments, the core values: dignity, choice, flexibility, quality, legality, cultural competence or responsiveness, accessibility, affordability, inclusivity, and independence. And those are commitments that in what you shared and what Carolyn and Sarah have shared with me are part of the commitments of all of you who have come to these discussions. So we wanted to begin with just a few terms there. In doing collective work, making sure that we are understanding terms in the same way is really important. Some of the key words, we use equity a lot. And I'll turn on my video just briefly. Equity is in the commitments that the DAN Coalition has. It's certainly throughout the Master Plan for Aging. There are many definitions of equity, and likely you are going to come up with a shared definition for what equity means to you. One broader way of thinking about it is just and fair inclusion in a society in which all can not only participate and have access, but can prosper, reach their full potential, beyond surviving to thriving. And in discussing equity, we make a clear distinction between equality and equity. You know, equality is treating everyone the same. And we don't really do this in our lives. If we have more than one child, if we have had siblings, if we are interacting with students, perhaps, we as people want to meet the real needs that people have. Financial aid, for example. I was in educational administration for a while. You don't take federal financial aid and give everyone $2. It's based on need. Some people may need no additional support. Some people may need a lot. So equity is looking at what people need to get to that level of prospering. Another way of thinking about it, you know, the system work that you are taking on is really at the heart of what equity means. You're coming together because there's a system of collaborations. There are services out there, but we have a sense of what is needed to make it stronger by working together. There are policies or practices, accessibility issues. That is the nature of systems. So when we talk about inequality, you know, when we get to access and who can or can't get access to a service, that's one level. We can leave the door open, put a ramp to our businesses. We can lower the bar for people entering. But if you can't really use the service, if it's not for you, if it's not helpful, that equal access doesn't really matter as much as it could. What we want with equity is we want the equality at the level of outcomes, so that as a student, say, you graduate, you're able to get a degree or a certificate. We want that outcome for everyone, and recognizing that different people may need different supports along the way. They may need the system to recognize that their lives are different. The ultimate work of equity looks at those systems and institutions, so that we're more leaning towards justice. Maybe the institution of education, which is part of what's happening at the community college system, needs adjustments. It's not that this whole group of people are not graduating because they're not doing their work, right? It's more about, what do we need to change as an institution? So the system work uh, is that recognition of what we need to do together to make that happen. The term collective impact really came about in 2012. And I've been an a program evaluator for a long time. And it was one way of addressing this need, particularly among nonprofits, within international development, across educational institutions, that no one program or project or organization could fix everything, right? That we need partners. We need to come together to look at the different parts of what needs to change, and to do it more holistically. So the term collective impact, and we could spend weeks talking about it, or a brief webinar, but essentially it's a network of community members, of agencies, of institutions that work together, learning together, aligning their efforts, gathering data together, so that they can integrate their efforts towards a larger, more sustainable systems level change. And within that work, there was just recently, last week, an article that came out that really spoke about how this collective impact is also really centering more explicitly on equity. And that's in everything from the design. And you are at the brink of designing what in the ways in which you'll work together for the goals, the master plan for aging goals, creating through that design a common agenda and understandings. What do we mean when we talk about equity? What do we mean when we say we're working collectively? How can we all be on the same page so that we understand and support each other? Equity in a collective impact model also often includes community and these kind of cross-sector partnerships. Certainly the master plan for aging is set up to for you to do that. Using data, not just at the end to see what worked or what didn't work, but to learn as you go, to adapt, to see if there are any gaps among groups or issue areas, and to continually improve and grow. And part of that work requires what you do every month, that building relationships and trust, bringing things to the table and working them out. The systems leaders and equity leaders, that requires constant cultivation. And your advisory councils, the things that you are talking about doing, are the exact way that collective impact models are designed to work. Building that leadership, not just from the top, from the middle, and from the ground up as well. And then finally, coordinating efforts. with that focus on systems. So that's a brief sense of what we're talking about when we talk about equity, when we talk about working collectively with that equity lens. Are there any questions before we get into our more interactive warning? This next part's interactive work.
We just
And I
want to
can't
remind
see.
everyone to type into the Q&A box, and we'll make sure that gets to Dr. Brisolara's attention. And Dr. Brisolara, while they're thinking about that, we did have two final entries in our chat area as introductions. One coming from Tina Hartman, who is with Jenny's Helpers. And she voices one sentence mission statement is, Jenny's Helpers is here to create connections to resources and services for a more inclusive life. This is for all regional center consumers. And then we have one coming from the Disability Action Center. When I come in, I'm representing the DAN Coalition. So we also have joining us Ms. Khadijah Webster, who works with the Disability Action Center, who voices our mission is to serve persons with disabilities pursue independence, inclusion in their communities, and most optimum lives. And I work in our information and referral center.
Thank you. So I'm going to go ahead and turn off my video so Jay can be in the spotlight there. So we do have a poll that we are hoping will work, that we're going to launch. And this is an opportunity for you to give a little thought to why you participate in DAN. And we tested this out before, so we hope that you're able to check any of the answers that apply. And you can let us know if anyone needs us to read these out loud.
Your poll is live. If anyone has a challenge, please tap into the chat box and we'll be happy to assist you.
And thank you for responding. You can respond to multiple. Great, we've had 4 people. And I think if you were here early, the panelist, you're not able to participate. Is that right? The poll disappeared.
That is correct. We do have 14 attendees. I'm not sure why your poll disappeared though.
I do not either.
You're welcome to relaunch that if you like, Sharon.
Let me share initially in case, because I think the relaunching will clear. Can you see the results so far?
We sure can.
Okay,
We
great.
do have 2 new messages coming into the chat. And
Yes, that
we
it,
have Tina Harshman and Elaine Benwell saying, yep, it disappeared. So they didn't
I
get to
know,
respond.
that's so, yeah, and I didn't notice any time features, so I can relaunch again. It is a quick one, apparently. But so far, no one is here to spend more time with Zoom. That's nice. And we've seen that for many of you, it's many of these reasons. You have multiple reasons for wanting to network. Let me relaunch again if you did not get a chance to participate.
Poll is now relaunched. So if you didn't get to some questions, please zoom to the bottom. And for those that are just starting, you're welcome to go for it.
So quick. Nice. All right. I'm going to go ahead and share. It looks like we have about everyone 8 this time. Oh, sure. Okay, share results. There we go. So really similar. One person wants to spend more time on Zoom. We have opportunities for you.
That's
So
funny.
we do see, throughout all of these, by the way, are related to, they're all collective impact types of measures, but that many of you want to have that greater impact and to stay, to be able to adapt, which also is part of engaging in complex systems like the ones you all work in, being able to learn, adapt, partner, bring others along. So that's really great, and that partnership in these first 2 questions. The something else, did someone want to share about what the something else would be?
So if you commented as something else, if you could please raise your hand, we're happy to unmute you. There's no
If you
way for us
want
to
to.
identify you if you'd like.
That's fine. We know where you are, and we'll ask you some other questions later. Um, so that's really what you just shared there are really the elements of this mindset, this awareness of collaborative efforts and the power that they can have. So one of the things that we wanted to do is to give you a minute to think. Oh, thank you, Jesse, that you entered that you're trying to better serve adult victims of crime. Yes, thank you. Um, that to give you a moment to think first, and then I will pull up a document where we can enter our thoughts. You're free to enter it into the chat, and Carolyn will read it out, or you can raise your hand and speak your suggestions, whichever you prefer. If it goes into the chat, we'll read it for you. But we want to know, and I'm not sure why I have my little poll is covering my thing here, but what do we stand to gain through increased collaboration, and what do we stand to lose? And by we, um, I'm really talking about not only you as an organization, but you as a member of DAN. There are many reasons why people choose to collaborate more in a more collective way. And there are also some reasons why people decide not to. So I want to give you a minute to think on your own, jot some ideas down, and then I will pull up a document and we can share those together so that we've captured it. Does that make sense?
Sounds perfect, Sharon. We'll watch the chat box and make sure that all comments are coming through.
And if you have any ideas, if you want to raise your hand or speak. Oh, thank you, Sarah. Let's see if I can copy and paste. And if not, I'm going to, oh, look at that. Great.
Beautiful.
These are coming in from the chat. Better perspective of how to serve. Nice. Collaborating helps us to help others. Strength in numbers. Increased understanding of each other's programs. Oh, look at that. I'm gonna have to go back and make sure I have. We are gonna save the chat, so we'll get more of that together. New relationships, endless possibilities. Ongoing education. Let's see if it'll let me share this one. Okay. And yes, Diane reminds us that people are multifaceted. I'm not sure if this copied appropriately. I'll be checking that later. Jesse's comment. Understanding obstacles and sharing ideas. Yes, Tatiana, thank you. Oh, Elaine, look at you. Did I type that right? Okay. Stand to lose the roadblocks and obstacles to meeting the needs of people. And also, if there's anything else, any other reasons that come up for you, we want to surface if there's any concerns about collaboration. And again, if you would rather speak, feel free to raise your hand. Several ongoing learning. Any other reasons for collaboration? Doors that it would open. More efficient delivery services. Any ways that your own organizations might benefit? Yes, Elaine. I think that's an African proverb. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. Nice. Any concerns? New perspectives and creativity. Innovation. Yes, it's one of the key reasons we want diversity and equity is it's really hard to innovate talking to the same people about the same things. Different ways to approach that goal. Anything else that comes to mind? Yes, thank you, Diane. So it's Diane's saying that we'll put it on this side that we can only gain from effective collaboration, she says, but it needs to be rooted in processes that work in the everyday lives of the people who work in our organizations. Yeah, so it had the processes, how we make decisions, attention to those things will be really important in making that work. Yeah, so Tatiana raises that we're in organizations that have different priorities based on grant requirements. There may need some legislative work. right? That we might have to attend to policies or procedures. There may be different memos, MOUs across agencies. There may be different needs for attention or advocacy within or outside of our organizations. And Corey saying that we could lose community opportunity without the collaboration. So we'll put that. So I hope I'm not making anybody dizzy with that. I almost made myself dizzy. Okay, great. Please feel free to add anything else. Regulatory limitations, that's similar. So how, and this will come up later in things that we will need to address. What are those regulatory limitations? What are the mandates that we have to address? How can we, as others are saying, think differently or creatively for integrations? What are the processes, the decision-making processes, the ways that we work together? How can we really attend to that? And Sarah, what do you mean about limited scope of work?
I think what I was thinking of is, I'm just going to use our organization that
Sure.
went through legislative restructuring. Is so our organization in California, people knew us as called the Area Board on Developmental Disabilities, and we had a totally different role and function. And through these legislative changes and restructuring, kind of the main role that we used to do ended in 2015. And so sometimes, what you think you can do, sometimes it changes. And so it translates into sometimes there are barriers to scope of work. And sometimes that's just, the politics of the organization. It could be legislative changes. So, I think we all are feeling we are in so much time of change. And so sometimes that can translate into limitations. Certainly. I guess I was just thinking of that.
Yeah, no, thank you. And Tina shared something else too, that awareness of misunderstanding, using similar terms, but perhaps in different ways, meaning something different. So what's coming out for me for all of these is that you all are clear on the possibilities and benefits of collaboration, and that it's more along the lines of how do we address the possible roadblocks or challenges in order to make that happen. Not so much, we're not concerned about turf wars so much, or losing my own organization's relevance. Those are things that can come up for groups. And beautifully, what you're saying is that we are going for this larger vision. We see the importance, we see how it's connected to what we do, but we know that there'll be things to address along the way. And maybe part of that can be what we begin to unpack next time. So I'm going to go ahead and close this. You can certainly add more in the chat that I will come up with, I will go to later. And we will also send notes to others so that other people can be involved. And now we're going to try something, now for something completely different. Now we're going to try doing kind of a low tech reflection on where you think your organization most wants to work or play with respect to the master plan for aging goals. You were sent a link to this, to the master plan for aging what those goals mean. And I think Carolyn can put it again in the chat if you wanted to pull it up. But what we wanted to do is to begin to map out, which is what these will be for, which area you think you're most aligned with, most suited to adding your efforts within Dan. Some of you do a range of things and play in many areas. But for the purposes of being here with Dan, which one of these goal or sector areas do you most want to contribute to? And again, you can put your organization name and the sector in the chat or raise your hand. And we're just going to have a visual. This is not, you're not signing on the dotted line. This is something that will continue to evolve, but we want to begin thinking which sector, in which sector will you lend your energy? Does that make sense to folks? You can give us I think you can give us a thumbs up or a yes in the chat. Okay, so passages says inclusion and opportunities. Yeah, so that equity and inclusion in that sense is about opportunities for work and volunteering and all of those things. Great. Health, housing, and inclusion opportunities. So should we just put Sarah? Sarah's in.
Sure.
You're going to be in those three areas. So we're going to housing. So this is going to take me a little while. Did I give you the right number of D's? Okay.
Yep.
Housing, health, and inclusion. And hopefully this will also give us a sense. Let me scroll back up. So Corey, and that's with Corey, you're with Peg Taylor? The Diane and
Yes,
Corey?
yes, that's
Yes,
correct.
okay.
Diane and Corey are together.
Okay.
Corey is the new interim executive director.
Oh, wonderful. Okay. So I have you here in health. And
Sharon, I want to let everyone know if they'd like to download that PDF file to their computers, they should be able to do that from the chat. And it just kind of recaps the master plan for aging, 5 bold goals, and pulls in this entire concept for a quick review for them.
let's put Cornine healthcare and health. Yes. Yeah, so you will have within that health, and my understanding of that health reimagined, it really is acknowledging those social determinants of health from an equity standpoint and being culturally responsive. So thank you.
And Sharon,
Jenny's
we do
helpers.
have a couple of chat comments as well. I have Mary Newman coming in from Passages saying if we are doing more than one area, Passages would be caregiving as well.
Okay, perfect. So Jenny's healthcare is both here, and I just remembered I could copy and paste caregivers and Passages. What was the second one in health?
Passages is also caregivers.
Oh, caregivers. Beautiful.
And then we also have Jesse Powell coming in from Glenn County Victim Witness, speaking for health and inclusion and opportunities.
Health. All right. And Cornine also for caregiving. Have I missed anyone? Or has anyone not yet spoken? And Carolyn, is that for DAC?
Yes, this would be for Disability Action Center, Health, Quality of Life, Inclusion, and Opportunity. I'm not sure who's logged in as me, but that's perfect. Representing the House quite well. Oh, Brain Injury Council. Okay, that's Brain Injury Council coming in. So where you have DAC, Sharon, that would technically be Brain Injury Coalition,
Oh, perfect.
or BIC.
Okay, yes,
There
I'm
we
going to
go.
put BIC and
Thank you for
health as
clarifying.
well, right?
I see health, quality of life / inclusion and opportunity on BIC.
Yeah, so inclusion of opportunity and the quality of life, do you mean the affordability or for the, is this that part of like how, quality of life being part of health?
And that's directed for the Brain Injury Council. Thanks.
Okay, okay. Jenny's helpers is not. Oh, thank you. I said it out loud, right? All right. Anyone else? Thank you, Tina. As you're thinking about that, we'll certainly clean this up. When you think about who's been coming to Dan, does this, and you'll notice that in the master plan for aging, it's clear that equity does not lie solely within inclusion and opportunities. It's really infused in how you're doing all of these things. As we look at this and notice right now there's one organization represented. Of course, not everyone's here for housing. And there's not an organization around affordability just yet. Are there organizations that typically come that you feel would be part of those kind of addressing?
Yes, definitely. This is Carolyn speaking with DAC.
Mm-hmm.
We do have several who are not able to come today to this session, but for example, the North Valley Housing Trust has a huge interest in both housing and affordability, and they've been participants in our DAN activities quite actively. And I'm thinking in terms of the Disability Action Center itself and representing DAC, DAC. So let's do Housing Trust there. North Valley Housing Trust, definitely housing and definitely affordability. I sit as a board member on that trust, and they are basically about designing extremely affordable housing for the region.
And Mary put chat and the continuum of care. Are those, which continuum of care sort of collaborative is that?
The COC represents a Butte County effort,
Okay.
and that would also be affordability and housing, as well as chat, which stands for Area Housing Authority.
So I lost part of you there, Carolyn. You said the COC is definitely housing and
Correct.
affordability.
It's housing and affordability, and that is
Okay.
a Butte County-wide effort.
Okay. And then chat.
And chat is a local nonprofit also engaged in producing extremely affordable housing for our region.
Perfect. And I'm putting these in another color. We'll later, since they're not here, speak to that.
Sarah, if you can think of anyone else who typically is here, I know we definitely had a member from Partnership Health who was not able to attend due to a family circumstance. So
I'm thinking of Rachel.
absolutely, Rachel.
And I'm also thinking of Anthem.
Correct. So that would be healthcare for Rachel and kind of across caregiving housing for Rachel now?
Uh,
How would you classify?
I would probably put it more caregiving,
Okay, perfect.
actually.
So Rachel would be representing Prestige
Yeah.
Assisted
Oh.
Living.
I mean, I guess I could see what you're saying, caregiving and housing. I mean, I could see what you're saying for that.
Right, right. So that would be Prestige. They just were not
But
able
gosh,
to-
it's also health, isn't it?
Right, that's why I'm saying, how do we classify that?
Yeah.
So where would we like to put that for? I mean, we're
Well,
gonna
if
obviously
we
will.
would put Prestige and caregiving as well as in health,
Yeah.
and partnership, definitely health.
Okay.
We got
And Anthem, we
California
forgot
Health
about.
and Wellness.
Exactly, so we have
Or
partnership
HealthNet.
health. Yeah. And then Prestige under caregiving. And then, of course, Anthem is a regular attendee as well to our meetings. They are not here today, so Anthem would go under health again.
Okay. I'll just be a little reminder there since that's being finicky, and that's
Oh,
health.
now it moves for you. That's funny.
Oh, that didn't like the move. All right.
This is real-time technology, everyone.
It is real-time technology. Well, we'll move Anthem.
And the
over there.
last one would be California Health and Wellness, or I believe they go by HealthNet. Is that correct, Sarah?
That is correct.
And they are also health.
Okay.
And I would say this is extremely helpful because in thinking about the master plan for aging from DAC's perspective, we kind of, with Disability Action Center, we are technically touching a little bit of every single circle here. And our goal is to have this representation with the DAN Coalition, bring that equality, bring that inclusion for all of these areas more equally. So it helps us to see where our work is moving forward.
Are there any others that are working more on affordability? And this is for, anyone in the chat as well.
And so Sharon, as you're working on this post presentation, know that DAC touches every single one of these squares. And I see a comment, yeah, Tatiana, in what area? That's a good question, Tatiana. I know where DAC is concerned. We look at affordability in housing. We look at affordability in healthcare. Pretty much it's across the board for us, including just day-to-day living, down to the basics necessities of food and clothing. We kind of encompass all of it in our day-to-day goal setting and plans with our families.
Yeah, and when you go to the mpa.aging.ca.gov, it talks about economic security, both retirement income and the sources of that, economic mobility, income security as we age, protection from poverty and hunger. Those are the key strategies. And Victor saying Butte County Public Health, inclusion, opportunities, and affordabilities. Thank you.
And I saw an additional comment come in from Diane right above Victor.
That's weird. Okay. So let's see. Butte is health and inclusion, opportunities and affordability. Great. And PTC, that's Peg Taylor, right? Affordability as well. Yeah,
Correct.
and yes, and probably and that's part of, at the beginning, many of you do touch on many areas, and certainly like when you look at from a social, social determinants of health perspective, there are definite connections. And I think part of this is, where will your primary focus be for this network, for this collective effort? It may not be everything that you do. And I call on Carolyn and Sarah to, to speak to that on how what's, your partners' roles, more intensive efforts in this network. Do either one of you want to speak to that?
Yes, I'll start, Sarah, and then if you have
Yeah.
additional comments.
Sure.
What we envision is that you would look at your organization and look at what you spend the maximum amount of time with your catchment service area, and what you really believe is your strength. Because it is the strengths that we want to collaborate most effectively on. Now, there may be an area that you're saying, okay, we're moving into this, but we're not quite seeing it as our core strength. So we want you to know about it. We want you to understand we have that ability, yet we're going to bring to the table initially this service as our core.
And if that changes some of your responses, go ahead and put, if there's fewer areas that you really want to bring in terms of your strengths, please do put that in the chat.
Sarah, any comments or thoughts from you?
I think you articulated that well. I'm actually, I'm thinking, I'm processing. This is a really interesting exercise. Well, I guess,
Go ahead,
what
Sarah.
I guess what I'm just, what I'm feeling as we're doing this truly collaboratively, is that I'm just really seeing the common goals. And, one of the reasons that Carolyn and I are really excited to move forward with a more focus for our DAN coalition around the master plan for aging and our ADRC project is because how much we have built this beautiful network on over the last several years. I mean, we are working together so much more through the DAN coalition that it just seems like a natural next step for us to formalize, and I'm using that word with quotes, just formalize a little more of our collaborative goals so that we really can change and improve our system here in the North State. It's
Yes,
kind of like we've already been on this path. And so we're really just looking to strengthen our partnerships to move the mountain maybe just a little more impactful.
Yeah, and and Tatiana's bringing up the points too that hopefully, and when this is a little cleaner, also, but that you can see who isn't part of this yet that you need to. And Tatiana brings up veteran services, agencies that serve the homeless, like PATH and Tehama, and and others, as I'm guessing who you're thinking about.
And I will voice to that as well, Sharon. We have had on the outside edges of the DAN coalition agencies like what used to be the Torres Shelter. They're now titled True North. And they are definitely emergency housing services. I can also voice that we had several organizations who just weren't able to be here today, who actually registered for today, representatives from Nation's Finest. So thank you, Tatiana, for reminding us that our veteran services are very much a part of this DAN representation. They just weren't able to be here today. So I don't want to speak for Nation's Finest, for example, where they would want to put themselves in this platform, Sharon, but I do know that True North and Nation's Finest have also been very much engaged in our activities.
Yeah, yeah, and so when we send this out, and Tatiana brings up different tribal nations, and certainly there'll be tribal health clinics who might have one focus, and other areas of rancherias and tribal nations that may want to focus elsewhere. And so hopefully when we send this out, it will be an opportunity to, this is where we thought your strengths lie and where you could play. And if there's some other area, please let us know. You may give some consideration to, okay, I really could do 3 areas, but I can see being, having the most impact in these 2 areas. And if there's anyone missing when we take a look at that we think we really need at the table, that can be part of what this might do for us.
Absolutely, Sharon. And speaking again to Tatiana's comments, I know that we have extensive communication going on right now with the Northern Circle Indian Housing, which covers our entire catchment area for most of us in attendance. We also have relationships and understandings with the Maidu tribe, with the Pit River Nation. So all of these individuals aren't represented in today's conversation, but they are very much active within our DAN coalition presence.
Yeah, so thank you for that. I mean, part of the process will be about engaging in who do we need here, and how do we need them, and how do we reach out, and how do we work together. So we just have a few minutes left, and I was hoping that we could give some thought to, it won't be the last time we talk about it, certainly, but what we'll need to make our collaborative efforts work. And I'm just going to, since I'm the one that's unmuted, say, let's take time and money off the table for right now. Right? That's always, no matter what, that those always come up, and they certainly are real issues and some constraints, but they're kind of ever present issues that we need to work around creatively, as someone mentioned. But what kind of mindsets or connections or processes do we need to be attentive to? And you can go ahead and put that in the chat or unmute as you feel called to do, whichever feels good for you.
So Sharon, if you would like open conversation for these last few minutes, I'm happy to unmute the entire group.
Sure, and I'm going to go ahead and stop my share. And I'm going to take, and we are saving the chat, right? But I'll write down some of these. So mindset of,
we are definitely saving the chat. Yes.
Mindset of commitment. Diane, do you want to say a little bit more about that?
Actually, it was me, Corey, who said
Oh,
that.
Corey.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we just have to be committed to doing the task, because if we're not, people will miss meetings and things won't get accomplished.
And is there anything that comes to mind for you? And again, this is kind of an ongoing conversation, but anything that comes to mind for you, what would foster that sense of commitment?
Our clientele does for me. I'm completely committed to getting them the best of what they need. And that's not just us. I mean, it's even, community wise, we have homeless people around here who need services. We have a lot of different things going on in our community.
Yeah, so refocusing who you're serving and why you're doing what you're doing.
Yeah,
Yeah, thank you.
welcome.
Who else? What we need to be able to make collaboration work?
This is Tatiana. One of the things that I think we should also be very mindful of is unmet expectations. And so we have to be very clear on what is doable in the time frame, work towards excellency, but also consider what are the constraints. And so there's nothing worse than promising somebody that they can get housing when in reality they haven't been constructed yet, you see. So that's you've got to have realistic goals and a realistic time frame.
And it sounds like, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it sounds like both for what we are saying to the community and those we serve, but also in how we collaborate together, how we construct this collective effort.
Exactly.
Balancing our vision with recognizing our constraints and what we're working within.
Yeah, exactly. Because, everything you have to be realistic is dependent on funding. California is multi-billion-dollar in surplus, but that can go away in a minute.
Yeah, thank you. And Tina mentions more advertising, especially in diverse languages. And Tina, is that about awareness of resources and outreach to community, or what else is there for you? And I'm not sure if you have audio.
Tina, you do have the ability to unmute, but I'm not sure what your microphone ability is.
Oh, there's Tina.
There's Tina.
Am I on here now? Okay, thanks. I had to click another button. Yeah, I was just getting the word out seems to be more important. It's we don't do old school sending out mailers sometimes because it doesn't work, but that's why I suggested TV, like media kind of attention. I don't know how often Dan gets out onto the airways.
So both that we are working collaboratively, doing this work for these reasons, that kind of.
Yeah, yes.
Great, thank you.
I think one thing that is important in, collaboration and the commitment of all this is celebrating the small accomplishments. Is, what is the woman, my colleague that I work with, always uses at the end of her PowerPoint. It's Margaret Mead, and it's something about, and help me everybody. It's something about never underestimate the power of,
Small
that
group
one.
Of people.
Yeah,
it's the only thing
because that's the only
change.
thing we have is it's like, so I think it's really important to pause and celebrate those accomplishments. I mean, I have to honestly say that Carolyn and I, we often reflect on how far we've come with our Dan coalition. I mean, we literally check in with ourselves all the time and say, oh my golly, who would have ever thought that we made it this far? And that just motivates us to keep moving forward. And, we really had to ask ourselves, are we ready? Are we ready to take it to the next level? And it's because of this amazing collaboration and network that we have built and we value that has given us that hope and strength to go, we can do it. We can do it together.
Yeah, and Sarah, I want to echo that both from an evaluation standpoint and from a coaching for change standpoint, that there's a lot of science behind really recognizing what has happened, um, both from an energetic, motivational, like we're making progress, perspective, but also so that, frankly, I've been involved in a lot of initiatives where we spend a lot of time talking about something that we already did, or that is in process or that we've done. And so that's another way of really using evidence and data to inform and energize and adapt. So thank you. Thank you for bringing that up. And either Diane or Corey, did somebody else unmute? Oh, Diane put in the chat. Communication and resolution of obstacles to understand how our local systems are actually functioning so that we can resolve the roadblocks that impact access and equity. Yes. Yeah. So there's several pieces there. So our communication, how are we communicating? Are we satisfied with that? Is it working? What are our decision-making processes? How do we resolve obstacles? What's our mindset about that? What are our ideas about how change happens? And what's our model for addressing those? And there's another piece of really understanding, how is it that you do? How is it that Peg Taylor is doing the work it's doing? What lends its success? Some of those things, if intentionally designed into your work, can unfold over time, and some are really helpful to construct at the beginning, like those decision-making structures, for sure.
And Sharon, I would jump in as well. This is Carolyn with DAC. I think it's important that as we move forward, that we each understand what equity means, what inclusion means from the perspective of what we do. Because equity and inclusion may mean something for Disability Action Center that is very different for the State Council for Disability, for Developmental Disability, or for Peg Taylor Center, or for CHAT. So
Exactly.
it's, as we come together in collaboration, we want to make sure.
Carolyn, we can't hear you. We lost you.
Oh, really? That could be a
You're back.
connectivity.
You're
Okay,
back.
that could be, okay, that could be connection. We want to make sure that as we come together in collaboration, that our colleagues understand what equity and inclusion means from our perspective, because it may not be identical. And really, in all honesty, it's impossible for it to be identical because we don't all serve in the same way. And so we identify that and make sure that we can honor what you bring to the table.
Yeah, and what I hear in that, Carolyn, is both, perhaps a shared kind of operational definition, a shared understanding of the term, knowing that our different organizations may have a different hold on that, or a slightly
Exactly.
different definition we use. Thank you. And Victor is mentioning a perhaps an ambassador program with toolkits, and I think that he is volunteering to do an interpretive dance on TikTok, if I'm reading correctly between the lines, Instagram, Facebook, or somebody.
That's pretty cool.
Okay, he didn't really, but that always wakes people up when I say that. So yeah, so more of a social media presence for younger people, Instagram, Facebook, yeah, the things younger people are not on email. So, and an ambassador program with toolkits to engage young mind. That is great. And I would ask you more about that, but I want to be respectful of our 3 o'clock wrap up time. That sounds like a really rich strategy there. Tatiana has to leave too. So I just wanted to end with thanking you all for here and let you know a little bit about quick next steps. And part of that will be You will be getting some things from us, sort of a summary of notes, an opportunity to reflect again, maybe a brief feedback form so we can prepare for the next session what you think is most needed. I have some ideas, but I really want to hear from you about what would be most helpful for setting that base. And Sarah and Carolyn and I will be talking as well, debriefing about all your great ideas. Are there any other final comments? I'm so appreciative for you all coming today and for the interpreters. I tried to speak more slowly. I don't think I succeeded.
You
Uh,
did
I-
very
I just-
well.
I just wanted to I'm always kind of thinking of logistics and process. And that is, Carolyn, partner, my friend, does everybody need to register for the December one? That's like a separate registration process? I can't remember.
That is correct, but as a courtesy for all of our registrants for today, we will automatically register them into the December program so that they're already set for part 2. You will receive a link with your, again, individualized admission into the room. We will also continue to send out those general invitations, tweak them, tailor them for our part 2 program.
Yes, and Carolyn, Corey's email has she has wants to make sure we have her correct email, which is in the chat.
Perfect. Yes, got it.
Anything else?
I just want to say that this is so exciting. I'm having such a great time. Sharon, you're amazing. You are like making magic happen. So we are just so grateful, and we are grateful to every single one of you that is here. This is our community. It's up to us. We can do it.
I agree. And for those of you who are still with us, please spread the word. This will be recorded and broadcast for anyone to watch. We'll have it posted at the Disability Action Center website on a landing page that will continue the process together. And we want as many people to come into this process as possible. It's open not just for professionals, but it is open to our entire community, no matter what their position or standing. Please spread the word. We look forward to joining you all in December at our next meeting.
And thank you, everyone.